Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm really grateful to share my testimony with you today. My journey of addiction and recovery started when I was about 16 years old, but I want to give you a little bit of history and background. I grew up in a family of five. I have two sisters, and my parents are really loving, caring, and have been supportive to me my entire life. I grew up in South Oklahoma City, and as a young child, I was outgoing, happy, involved in all kinds of things in school, like sports and drama, and had lots of friends. There wasn't anybody I didn't get along with or didn't like. And until I was at the end of high school and beginning of college, really everything was smooth sailing. I got good grades. Like I said, got along with everyone, was very involved as a young person. Things started to change for me. First, when I was around 13 years old, I had began cutting on myself with small tools, not very sharp things. And there was some turmoil in my family that just kind of flipped my world upside down and caused me to see things differently and start to wonder and question if this was really normal. And I started to consider things to myself like, I think there are some things that are my fault. And I had a great desire to make everything around me okay. Um, and that started to carry on towards the end of high school and the beginning of college. I moved away to college in Texas, and the first year and a half was great. Again, great grades, great friends, until one day I started to fall apart. I became severely depressed, and that was a new feeling for me. I didn't know why. I was having trouble sleeping, trouble eating, couldn't focus. And so I went and got help at the local mental health center. And that turned into deeper and more severe depression, anxiety, and things of that nature. At the time, I was in college, and so I turned to some friends that were drinking and doing some drugs. And that was really my first serious introduction to drugs and alcohol. And I liked the way that made me feel because the negative feelings I was feeling went away. Ultimately, after 2.5 years in college, I dropped out of school and moved back home to Oklahoma City. At that time, I got a headache that wouldn't go away. And this headache turned into back pain and neck pain, which turned into seeing doctor after doctor after doctor. And the doctors naturally prescribed me opiate pain pills. These pain pills kind of worked for the physical pain I was having, but they really worked for the emotional pain I was having. And without knowing it, I quickly became addicted to narcotics. And I didn't discover this for a number of years when I was working with a therapist, and the therapist said to me, I can't even talk to you anymore. I can't even help you anymore because you're so out of it. And that was my first introduction to substance abuse treatment. The therapist said I would need to go get medical detox to be able to safely get off of the narcotic pain pills. So I basically said, sure. I was really naive. I didn't know anything about addiction, and I certainly didn't know anything about getting clean and sober or recovery. And so I went and attempted to go through detox, and I thought that I could just go for a week, get detoxed, and be done and be good. And so I went and got the drugs out of my system. And at that time, they recommended that I go to a 30-day treatment center. And I said, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I need that. And so it was just a couple weeks afterwards that I found myself in the exact same situation again. Unfortunately, this cycle repeated over and over and over again. I went in and out of treatment over and over across a span of many years. I would go into a treatment center, get help. be serious about it, and then I would leave treatment and end up right back using opioids and using more and more frequently each time. Each time I did this, something worse would happen. I would get in a car wreck. I would end up in a bad situation. I would end up doing things that morally I would never do. I remember one time I had made it out to California and I had turned to heroin, and I found myself in a hotel room and making the decision that I didn't want to do that anymore and I would just end my life. I also remember a time where my parents came to a hospital. I had been taken to a hospital, and I remember my parents standing over me crying and just saying, "Why does this keep happening, and what are you going to do different?" And I didn't have answers. I just didn't have any answers because I didn't know. It didn't make sense why I would keep reaching out for help and then keep repeating the same thing over and over. All I knew was that a part of my brain was bound and determined to keep using the substance that felt good. But it didn't line up with anything I knew from my background, from my life. But it just was a major driving force. The last residential treatment center I went to, or rehab, they kept me there for a really long time. I was there for a total of 2 years, but something happened after I had been there for a year and a half. And one day I had gone home on an overnight pass. And on my way back, my brain flipped back into that addiction mode. And I stopped and got drugs. And I was on my way back to the treatment center. And I had a rollover car accident on I-40. I crossed all the lanes of traffic and opened my eyes about the time I was going 70, 75 miles per hour, and my car was rolling over. I landed upright in a ditch. And because I was not in the right state of mind, I got out of the car and walked around and noticed that I thought probably I can drive. I can get back on the road and drive because I need to get back to the treatment center. And so I did, and one of the tires was rim on road. And so I could only go about a mile. And at that point, the police came and said, and I asked them if they could change my tire for me. And the police said, we're looking for a car that looks just like yours that just had a really bad accident. And I said, I think that was mine. And he looked closer and he said, that was you, and you need to sit down because the top of the car was dented in. The tires had a little piece of grass in it. And just a short time after that, an ambulance came, a fire truck came, and they checked me out. And ultimately, this is the hand of God, but I drove away from that accident. The police helped me change my tire and I drove away. But what I want to tell you is that in that split second while my car was rolling over and I opened my eyes, you know how in crisis situations, a lot of the times time slows down and you go in slow-mo. That happened for me. And I remember it's like the headlights were shining on the ground, and I remember seeing a greenish blue light. But what happened in my mind was I cried out to God and I said, oh my gosh, I think I have killed myself. And my next thought was, I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. And that was different because for quite a few years prior to this, I didn't care if I lived or died. It didn't matter. And in that moment, it mattered. And I asked God, I said, I've tried every way I know to get clean and sober and be rid of these drugs, but I have not fully relied on you. And I think that is the moment I asked Christ into my heart to really be the Lord of my life. And I told God, I said, I will give you all the glory because there is no way I can do this on my own. I've tried. And I will tell you that in that moment, everything changed in my heart. It literally took that moment. But what didn't change was my behaviors. I still needed help with my behaviors because I got in the car and got back on the road and I went back to treatment, and it didn't take very long. And I told my first lie. I lied again to the people at treatment that were trying to help me. But over time, people that God put in my life were able to help me correct my behaviors, my addict behaviors, my human behaviors. And I'm still a work in progress. But that took another 6 months, and I left that treatment center. Flash forward some time, 2.5 years clean and sober later, I had done some great things. I had built my life back. I relapsed again. And so when that happened, I felt like an extreme, huge failure. Here I am. I've had that experience. I have a relationship with God. Things are going well in my life. My family is back in my life, and I failed again. And so I remember thinking, there is no one that can help me now. I've ruined it all. This is it. And there's nothing for me. There's nothing left. And I've disobeyed God. And that's when I found Hope is Alive Ministries. And it took a little bit of time to feel safe and comfortable and to be able to trust someone with that feeling. But I really was able to build missing pieces of the foundation I never had spiritually, substance abuse wise, and gain a really solid ground. And that's what I did during the 19 months that I was in the Hope is Alive program, to where now I have no question in my mind. I know that I can never lose the salvation that I have. And I built step by step on that solid foundation to where I have a life that is so worth living now. And I've had the opportunity to share with other women in recovery and guide them along their paths. I have the most amazing life today that I wouldn't trade for anything. It sounds weird to say. I'm grateful that I went through all the experiences that I went through because they were hard, they were painful. I hurt a lot of people along the way, but I would never be where I am and have what I have now if all of that hadn't happened. And I know the scripture it's the modern version says, the nights of crying your eyes out will turn to days of laughter. And I remember asking God way back when I was a late teenager, suffering with depression, like, there's got to be another way. I know you're teaching me something in this, but there's got to be an easier way. And there was not. My experience is absolutely being used today, and I wouldn't trade any of it. I'm always thankful to share my testimony and my story because God is all over it. And I can look back and see so many times where there was just a hedge of protection around me. And God has changed everything in my life. And he has used people all along the way to bring me hope, to bring me peace, to bring me joy. And I believe firmly that's what he does. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. And I wish that we were face to face because I could answer questions. But sending blessings your way, and thanks so much for this opportunity.